Okay, so if you have a project loaded into SMS 13.1 and you have some boundary conditions set up. In this case, I've got a water surface elevation forcing along the outside. I've got 4 different river flow or flow rate forcing boundary conditions on the inside. If you want to figure out if your grid is set up appropriately for the boundary conditions to be written out correctly, or if you're just wondering what the cells that are going to be assigned to any given boundary condition, where they're going to be located, which numbers they're going to be, things like that. One of the things you can do is to generate a snap preview, and that option is located down in the simulation section for a given simulation. I've got this one loaded. It's flow vgrid v6-grid. You can right click on that and go into generate snap preview, and what that'll do is it'll look at the activity classification that you've set up along with your boundary condition arcs and determine where the external and the internal boundary conditions are located, and then identify what cells those are going to have associated with it. So I'll just click this. You'll see a dialog pop up and it goes through. This should be relatively quick, and when it's finished it's going to close, and now I have this indication with a dashed line that shows me for the water surface elevation forcing boundary that the cells that are going to be connected to that boundary condition are covered by this dashed line. So we can zoom in, and then if we had the actual cells turned on, we can see that these approximately are located at the cell centers for those cells all the way around the grid. So I'll turn those cells back off again. So I'll turn off the cell edges, and now I can go in and let me look at the actual flow rate boundary conditions. So I'll zoom in and I can see that the actual arc that I have associated for these river flow boundaries is right here in black with 2 nodes on either side, but connecting those I have a red or a maroonish dashed line that if we turn off the snap preview, then you can see what that looks like. And so it tells me that these cells are going to be where the boundary condition is. So that means that for this particular case, the cells are oriented in this direction. I will have land on this side and then water on this side, and so the flow will be coming in normal to that boundary condition. And the same thing will happen for the other boundaries as well. So we have this one right here, we have land on this side, water on the inside, it'll flow into the domain in that direction. And the same thing happens for all the boundaries. And so when you go to write out your export your simulation files, it will write out the boundary conditions accurately. There have been some situations where, because of some reason, the boundary cells are not written out, and it's probably because something either with the way you have your boundary conditions set up here, or the way you have your activity classification identified, there's a problem with one or the other of those 2 things. For me personally, when I'm generating like an offshore boundary condition, I like to have the cell string or the feature arc that identifies that boundary condition on the outside of the domain, so it's a little bit larger than the domain, and that way when it's trying to attach to these external cells, it's not confused and finds some cells on the inside. So we have, sometimes I've seen some grids where the boundary condition is right here, and then so that may work for these cells, But for these cells, which are lower in resolution, there's actually a couple of lines of internal cells where it would try to attach those. And since the water surface elevation forcing is only available for external cells, it was not able to catch these cells. So anyway, in my case, that's why I like to have the boundary condition on the outside. Stay tuned for more tips and techniques to come. Thank you.